On today's episode of The Sound of Sales, I've invited Jens. Jens traveled the world, from Malaysia back to Belgium. He launched over 40 e-commerce products and came back to help team leader launch in the Nordics, and now he's a VP sales at Nodalview. A super interesting story where self-doubt is never far off. It's a great journey of how to become a VP sales and what his day-to-day activities today look like. I hope you love this episode. I am Bram, and this is The Sound of Sales. Could you do me a quick favor if you're listening to this? Please hit the follow or subscribe button. It helps more than you think.
I'm not a sales guy, but I started to know a lot about sales. Yeah, you can see my hand from this side, but if I turn around, I see it from another side. And it's up to you to turn around. Enjoy life and trust the process.
So Jens, for the people that don't know who you are, I don't want you to pitch. I just want you, if I would call your wife right now and I ask her, what does Jens do for a living? What would she reply to me?
She of all, I'm not married, so
okay.
You have to call my girlfriend. But what would she reply to me? She would reply to me that I am working in SaaS sales and that I am leading a sales team.
Okay, that's already And how do you spend your days? Is that mostly in meetings? Is that how do you spend them?
Oh, that's a good question. There's a good mix between meetings and for me there's also different types of meetings. There's a lot of one-to-ones actually, also with people of the team to make sure that we get the narrative right and that we really understand what is really working with our customers. That's for me super key, and that's sometimes a risk as a sales leader or a VP sales or a sales director or whatever, is that you do not have those daily calls anymore with your end customers. Mm-hmm. And so you have an idea, a remainder of what you think that they used to say to you, but things are evolving quite fast, certainly these days. And so it's really necessary and crucial to keep that link with the end customer and every now and then have conversations with them. Listen into calls, listen into discussions, demos. Even if I'm no longer the direct manager of SDRs, I still every now and then take time to dive into those calls to see, okay, this campaign people that were triggered by a certain marketing campaign, mm-hmm. How do we interact with them? What are the questions they ask us immediately? What's on their mind? Why did that message actually spoke to them? And because that's so important also into our messaging, into our positioning in the market and stuff like that. But if you would ask the same question that in the beginning you asked my girlfriend, if you would ask it to me or how I like to describe my role, for example, whenever I do interviews and I have to introduce myself, mm-hmm. I always say that my focus is creating growth, and I do that on 3 levels. And the first level is for me the company level, is me making sure that we get new customers in, that we get more revenue. That's pretty straightforward. Second level is really on the sales team, making sure that the team is growing, but also the team is growing in size, but also in efficiency. Yep. And then the third level is really the individual level of the people and making sure that every member of the team is developing him or herself, and that after 3, 4, 5 years of being sales at Nodalview, you know all about sales. Mm-hmm. That's basically my goal.
Yeah. And if you have those 3 aspects, what part of your job gives you the most energy?
Actually, all 3 of them, because they're super connected. If I would only focus on revenue and on getting new customers in, I would probably be the leader that is pushing the team constantly and putting pressure without actually knowing what are the the things that could actually move the needle, right? That's the cool thing is, by focusing constantly on those 3 levels, you actually really know, like, okay, if I turn this button on this individual, I need to train him or her on that specific case because that has the biggest lever into results, and so that's how we're going to grow faster. But it also, for me, the top level really makes sure that you're going to focus not only on your sales team, but that you're going to focus on the whole company. Where is it that marketing can help us more with generating inbound leads? What's the quality of those leads? What is the reason why today leads are slowing down, are the quality is lower, and all of those things. So that's really, that's what I like about being the sales leader, is really being not only focused on the sales department, but really having that impact on the whole company, saying, okay guys, this is the feedback we hear, product, here you have it. Messaging wise, marketing, this is really something that is talking, that people are reacting super hard to this sentence, this word. Use it in your campaign so that people will be triggered. And then of course you have the customer success, making sure that those product adoption rates go up immediately when they buy. And that's, for me, even I think in a lot of SaaS companies, that's the most crucial challenge. Is it's not selling, it's not getting people interested in you. It's you can give an awesome demo, people will be convinced about the value, but it's the actual use of the product that is always the challenge.
It must be a nice position to be in, to have that overview of all the different levers in the company as a VP, and that you can you have also your creativity at that point where you can start thinking about why this and why that. Are you a very creative person in that? Do you think like the customer, like why would they do certain actions like that, and why would they reply to our sales team like this?
I try to be in a sense that I try to connect the dots. If I hear feedback from customers on where they are stuck in product adoption, for example, I know that we can already as a sales team help to make sure that in the future people won't be stuck because they will understand the value of it. And that's also something that I realize is, like, when to answer the first part of your question, it must be very nice to see all of those different challenges and opportunities as a VP, which is absolutely right? It's amazing to see all of the potential, all of the opportunities that are still untapped. At the same time, it's also like, wow, still so much to do. What are you going to do first? It makes it even more difficult to keep that focus because, like I said, I focus on growth, but that's also because I'm really passionate by growth. I'm passionate by growth in all of its senses. Really making sure that me as myself, I grow as a person, but also at home I have plants that produce fruits. Even the growth of that is really something that fascinates me. It's like, and then of course, a company growing, making sure that both the team is growing, but also the revenue, the way we work. And so you see loads of opportunities. And for me, my biggest challenge today that I realize is to say no to opportunities. Say, super good idea, but we're going to park it for now. And we'll come back to it later. And that's something that is against all my values, against all my instincts. But rationally, I know it's super important to really make sure that you focus on those 1, 2, max 3 projects that are company-wide so important. Lots of companies start working with systems like, for example, OKRs, objectives and key results. And one of the biggest mistakes that I hear from peers in other countries and stuff is that the company ends up with, like, on a highest level with 20, 25 objectives. Like, these are our main focus things. No, in my opinion, it should be max 5, 6, one objective per department, and that's the main objective. And then there can be different key results. That's another story. But it's so tempting to continue to come up with objectives that it's dangerous to lose focus.
You talk about growth. If we take it back all the way to your first job. If you look back to your journey, like what was the journey of Jens like? How did you evolve? Because you started in 2011, I have it here, selling insurances. So take me from that one all the way to being a VP of sales at Nodalview.
Yeah, the selling insurances was actually some kind of a safety net, to be honest. I actually it was still during my studies, so I studied science of commerce, handelswetenschappen in Dutch, and I had still 6 months to finish my diploma. So I had two courses that I had to redo, and just to not have 6 months of holidays while doing nothing and focusing on those two courses, I asked my dad, who had an insurance company, like, can I join you for 6 months as an intern and just try and sell? And he gave me actually a very interesting challenge. And the challenge was, okay, I just had this weird guy passing by in my office saying that he'd created a new kind of insurance. It was an insurance for horses. But it was like for super expensive horses, and he said, okay, I want you to be responsible for that and to sell it. I had never had any sales experience, well, not like professional one. I never had any sales coaching, sales training. And so I started to, okay, how can I communicate? How can I make sure that people know that this exists and that we have this? And so I started my first experiences with Google Ads and making sure that it was back in the days, Google Ads was like still pretty affordable, and certainly you could easily like have those 75 euros vouchers that you can spend on their ads. And so I managed to have a lot of free advertising, and then to of course a lot of views, a lot of stuff, and then I started calling them all, and I realizing that nobody actually had a horse, that there were like people trying to buy a horse, and it was like completely miscommunication. And so then I went out, took my father's car and went out to some manages. I don't know the word in English, I'm sorry. So the places where all the horses stay, and to like those really specific ones where I knew there were some race horses and stuff. And then I started to talk to the owners, and I made what I call now today the sales 101 mistake, which is, hello, I'm Jens Massaert, and I have this awesome insurance. It's really specifically made for your horse and for you. What if? And I started pitching, and I never asked a single question. I didn't know anything about my lead. I didn't know what their pains were. I was just starting to sell. And of course, result is at the end of the 6 months, I really had one person that was ready to sign. So it was horrible actually, because it was for me like really, wow, this is super difficult. Now, this being said, it was super exciting, or not exciting, but I learned a lot during that period, because I also know that I learned that you cannot do, or it's super difficult to just do sales on your own. If you do not have good communication material, if you don't have assets that stick, if you don't have a messaging, if you don't know the real pains, you have to do some research. And that's a main lesson I took from there. Now, after that experience, I got graduated, and I said, okay, by that, I didn't want to stay and work there, because there was already my brother working there, and there was too much family as well in that scenario. So I moved on, and I had a great opportunity with Ormit. And Ormit is a company that actually hires what they call young professionals. And they give you a contract of 22 months. And after 22 months, it's over. But the cool thing is that they invest a lot in you. They invest a lot in soft skill trainings. I think you have in those 2 years up until 40 soft training days. And they also provide you a personal coach. So during those 2 years, the first year you focus on who am I, what do I like, and what am I good at? And then the second year you transform that into how can this apply onto your career. For me, that's really something that learned me a lot. I learned so much about myself, but also so much about professional life, how it's all about people skills. Everything you do, you have to do actually constantly do sales. It's all a psychological game.
Yeah.
And so that's mainly what I big things that I learned there. And then after those 22 months, I saved up some money and I said, okay, now is the moment to travel the world. So I took my backpack and I traveled alone around the world. And there, I again, super experienced. I can advise that to everybody who has the chance to do so, to travel alone. It's super interesting to get to know yourself, but also to have only yourself to listen to and to decide everything just on the spot. But also I have the impression when you travel alone, your receptors are a lot more active. Things inspire you more than when you're alone, when with somebody else. With somebody else, you have that conversation going, you're talking about something, and you don't pay attention as much to the outside, what's happening. And so the thing that struck me the most, I think, is how entrepreneurial people have to be in a lot of other parts of the world. Travel to South America, to Southeast Asia, to South Africa. It's everywhere the same. People have to be an entrepreneur to survive, and you really see how the creative ones manage to differentiate themselves from others. And there's even, and I recommend it to everybody who's listening, to go and read my article on LinkedIn on how a 12-year-old girl in Siem Reap in Cambodia taught me all about sales. I wrote it down in an article. I'll let you read it, but it's just by moments like that when you sit on a terrace, you're observing something and you get inspired by it. So that's really what I've been doing for 8 months. And then I ended up in Malaysia, in Kuala Lumpur, where I decided to look for a job because meanwhile my girlfriend was working there as well. So long story short, I joined her there, and I looked for a job where I started to work for an e-commerce. So my first digital experience actually in a digital company, and I immediately got the hang of how fast you get feedback of the market. You try something today, immediately you know if it works or not, because they had it was one of the biggest the personalized photo printing companies, right? You can have your photo books, albums, you had the canvases and stuff like that. And basically the CEO back then asked me, okay, they had already a large segment of products, and he asked me, can you create a new business unit that for everything which is non-paper printed? So I launched the famous coffee mugs where you can print stuff on, and I had to do everything, the market research, what are the products that are really hot in the market today, in the world, global market, because it was a global company. What are the machines? Where do I buy the blanks? I had to hire people to really operate the machines. I had to install the machines, make sure that we had the operational flow, so the logistics and stuff. And so it was so broad. I had to set the pricing, make sure that the marketing team was aware of everything they needed to know about the product. And then you literally at a certain moment click on a button, so it comes on the website and you see those first orders coming in. There's nothing more satisfying than that. I managed to launch, I think, 45 different products in 1 year. So it was really super busy, but I really loved that job. It was amazing. And then for personal reasons, I had to come back to Belgium. So I actually left that job a bit too early, because I was still getting loads of energy out of it. So, but yeah, sometimes things happen and change, and plans change. So yeah, that's. Then I came back, and then I had a very short project in a startup studio, but that didn't go very well. Where I was actually helping out the startup studio to launch one of their projects, and there things I learned there is that we saw it too big, and that sometimes when you start off something completely new, we wanted to sell it to enterprise companies, which was in the end the idea was pretty okay. But what I noticed is, okay, we needed to have a a lower barrier to invest, because the cheapest price was like, I think 15K. And yeah, that was a lot for a very high risk product that didn't even exist yet.
Yeah.
And so we still were developing it. I was showing it as if it existed based on those mock-up screens and whatever. But as you know, that never goes 100% well. And so it was super, super hard to convince people. People were like with me with the story, but always said, okay, but I want to test it first. Give me a free trial, give me an account. And I said, yeah, but that's not not yet possible. and so then it was a bit awkward. It was very awkward sometimes. It was most of the time a bit awkward. I managed to sell some packages, but then I decided to we also had some different visions with the management and myself, so I decided to leave there. And then I went to Team Leader, and at Team Leader, so that's a Belgium CRM company, also SaaS. That was the first time not the first time, because the previous one was also SaaS, but here I was really like an existing company.
Was a product.
There was a product. They were customers. And it was Team Leader was back then one of the two successful scale-ups in Belgium, together with Showpad. And so there they hired me to lead the international expansion into the Nordic countries, which was a super nice experience. Team Leader is also an amazing company to work for. They manage so well in creating that awesome culture where you feel from day one part of a story. And it's amazing how the management and the CEO really puts so much effort into creating and keep on reassuring that nice company culture. It's also something that I learned there, that how important that is to have that great culture in a company, so people really like to work for you. But so there, again, started off, actually I did 3 major roles there. Started with international expansion. It was actually an experiment to go to the Nordics, and the result were that it was working, but that at the same time our companies in the south of Europe were not achieving their targets. So we said, okay, we cannot focus on too many things, so let's focus on making sure that the existing markets develop. And so then the CEO asked me to look into partnerships, because that was like also a moment in time where Team Leader was receiving a lot of requests for partnering up. A lot of different people had ideas to, hey, what it would be super cool if we could have a partnership with this company or whatever.
Yeah.
And so the way it was handled depended really from who had the idea or who received the request. And so that's, of course, at a certain time, you cannot just handle that like that. And so he asked me to create a strategy about partnerships and how Team Leader should handle partnerships. And that was really cool, because basically the conclusion was, okay, we have 3 major types of partnerships, which is the integration partners, super valuable for Team Leader. We have the resellers, and we have the strategic partnerships like the big banks and stuff like that. And then I said, okay, let's focus on the resellers, because I think there's the biggest potential and with the lowest amount of effort. And so I started with half-time partner managers in every country, and that's really cool, because that project went well, also thanks to those awesome partner managers that gave it all in that 20 to 50% that they were allowed to spend on partners. And very soon we showed that, okay, we can actually make this growing, we can grow this channel. And it started to represent a decent amount of the new business. And when I left, almost a year now ago, it was representing 30% of the monthly new business came in via partners. And that I don't take credit for that, because it was no longer managed by me anymore. It was managed by an awesome guy, Vincent Blommaert, if you ever want to have another cool person here. So he led that and he made it great. So that's also what I like to do is focus on stuff that are not yet there. Take an idea, bring it from 1 to 10, and then once I'm at 10, the 11 to 100, I'm not the right guy for that. So then I like to hire somebody else, or say, okay, this is now working. Yeah. One of the persons that was in the project from the beginning is perfectly capable of leading this further. Up to you now. I fully trust in you. And I go to something else. That's really what gives me a lot of energy. And so then, in a certain way, so if you can make it feel it, I didn't really choose to go into sales, but then by being in all those roles, I was also always very close to the sales. I gave a lot of demos, even though I never really sold, although you sell here and there, but it was not my job, right? I gave a lot of demos. I went to fairs, and then I gave it to somebody else to do the follow-up. And basically, I'm not a sales guy, but I started to know a lot about sales. Yeah. And so that's also what the back then what the responsible of the sales team recognized. And so they asked me to become sales operations manager. So basically being the right hand of the chief revenue. And that's actually where I learned even more about sales. It's not the sales itself, but it's really like the processes behind it. It's seeing the sales in a SaaS company really as a production line, and where you have marketing bringing in the raw materials to create something. They drop it off, and then it's the inside sales or the SDR that has to really make take the right pieces and create it into some bigger pieces, and then ship it through to the next station where the account executive can really finalize it and deliver it. And then it goes to customer success to make sure that the product arrives well and fully, and that the customer understands it well. And that's really where you understand, okay, there's multiple aspects to sales efficiency. It's of course sales skills, that's undeniably important. But it's also how I design it in that product line or that production line is maybe not super respectful, but you have that line, you have the person who is doing a very focused job, but you also have the machine next to it that he or she needs to be able to do the job. And those are really the processes. It's a CRM tool. It's making sure that everything that they need is available and that they use it in the right way. It's tooling, it's tech stack, it's making sure that they have what they need, the materials to have decent calls, to have decent conversations, sales assets, whatever. That's all represented by the machine, and the person is the sales skills. And if there is a bottleneck, if there is a low conversion rate, that's the first thing I look at. Is it person related? Is it machine related?
Yeah.
And then you can start digging into, okay, it's machine related, what's wrong, what's going on in the process, and then and often you find it and you know how to improve. And that's so satisfying when you see, okay, we managed to increase another some percent points in the conversion rates. Yeah. So that's really what gives me the energy that brings me back to the growth aspect, right? Where you really know, okay, if I change this, if I automate this, we can do actually a lot more. And so it's gonna help us so much more. People no longer need to fill in one property in the CRM. It's gonna save time, it's gonna save headspace. And often those kind of small things have a very big effect. And that's what I learned. So in my latest role at team leader, and then there, I got asked by Nodalview people to go and join them as the role of VP sales, and here I am.
What a journey!
Yeah,
it's pretty nice. I didn't know. Like I viewed your LinkedIn and your history, but the tour around the world and then ending up in Malaysia and then doing this and that. If you look back and you would need to give advice about where you are right now to your 18-year-old self, like what is your bottom line that you would tell yourself?
Enjoy life and trust the process. That's really something that I've been realizing as well, is that making sure that having pleasure in the things you do is so important. Making sure that you are aware of living in the moment. Because way too often and I think honestly 80% of my awake time I think about the past or I think about the future.
Mm-hmm.
And only 20% I'm really enjoying the here and now. And for example, this morning when I had a ray of sunshine through the window when I was drinking my coffee, it's like, and then I really push myself to stop thinking about all the things I have to do or what I should have done yesterday. No, I just think, feel the sun, drink your coffee, and that's all you gotta focus on. And that's really what I mean with enjoy life. Make sure that you don't forget to enjoy it. It's so important. And then trust the process is really what I just showed, right? I never had a plan. I never said like, this is my goal, I want to get there and these are my steps. I just did what I felt was right, and by having that faith, having that trust in yourself, but also in the process, things fall into place.
Yeah, I sometimes when I'm talking with people, a lot of times it comes to play or it comes to mind that that you have no control over what is happening. Is that something that you're also a little bit busy with? Like there are energies that control a little bit of what I do, of what happens to me.
I think, something a very nice expression that summarizes that I learned from my girlfriend's dad is that in French you have an expression that says I'm lucky, is j'ai de la chance. But if you pronounce it differently, or if you write it the same letters, you can also say j'ai de la chance. So it means I am lucky or I'm helping my luck. And it's exactly the same way to say it. But it's really so, it struck me because it's so true. Mm-hmm. Yes, you have to be lucky. There is stuff that's gonna happen in your life that at least you have the feeling that it's outside of your circle of control. But everything what you do within your circle of control is gonna influence that. If I wouldn't have had all of those experiences, I probably wouldn't be here. And although every experience individually is not linked, there's no clear trajectory. Mm-hmm. I still think that
it happens for a reason.
It happens for a reason. I do believe in that. I do believe in the fact that nothing is just meaningless. So it's weird to express that feeling, but I really
understand what you mean. Is that something that you take with you in the way you lead? Yeah,
I think so. I do like to think so. One of the examples that I for me, it's really when I communicate to the team, I try to make sure that they all know that every little thing they do will have an impact later on. Mm-hmm. Because in sales, it's very often frustrating. You have a demo, the demo went well, and then all of a sudden, for X reason, it doesn't work out, and then you have to put the deal on lost, and it feels like failure. It feels like, and we've all experienced that. But it's what people often don't realize is that you've planted a massive seed for a tree that one day will grow. Because you gave that demo, because you gave it with such an enthusiasm, because you convinced him, because you showed your expertise, basically you planted the seed that will start to grow. And something one day will happen in that person's life. They will see your brand somewhere else. They will talk to somebody who talks about a similar product, and they will come back. And it's amazing how you can see all of that. And it's every mail that you write, every call that you do is a seed that you plant. And that's a bit what I mean. Like you're helping your own luck. If the more you do, the more contacts you have, the more positive you are in life, the more you will attract positivism. If you're always negative, you will just attract the negative part, and it won't work. One of the
law of attraction.
Exactly. One of the values at Team Leader that I really liked the most was choose positivity. And it's because of the word choose. You can have values be positive, but you can't always just be positive. If sometimes life's hard, world sucks, but you have still to make sure that you choose positivity. You can always choose for it. It's hard, it's difficult, but if you choose for it, you will keep on ensuring that you will attract positive stuff to happen to you. And that's really something I really strongly believe in.
Yeah. Yes, it's something I tend to, or try to take that into my mind as well, that things happen for a reason, and that sometimes the tipping point will fall, and then sometimes it won't, but maybe it comes at a later point.
Yeah, exactly.
So one of the big topics currently in our society is, of course, also mental health. And it's one thing to choose positivity or that, but it's another thing to feel like, whoa, my sales targets are very heavy, and like the high pressure and that sort of stuff. So if you look at people in your team or like junior SDRs, like they come in, they have to learn a lot, like how to craft emails, how to do cold calling, like all that sort of stuff. How do you protect them, or how do you protect yourself from for keeping your mental health in check, basically, and making sure that positivity effect stays at the upper hand?
Yeah, that's a very good question. And it's something that is easy to be forgotten. Mm-hmm. I try to actively remind myself daily to identify small wins and to make sure to celebrate them. And that's on individual level of somebody of the team. It's just, a tap on the shoulder can go a long way. And it's also like making sure that we celebrate as a company if we reach big milestones, that we put some weight in it, and that we really celebrate it, to make sure that, guys, yes, we're working hard, pressure is there, but we're getting there. We are also reaching our objectives that we set for ourselves, and let's now take the time to celebrate. And that's something that we, as a human being, I think I see it everywhere around me, but once there's pressure, we tend to forget. I remember months at Team Leader where we had a steep target, and then we reached the target, and because we had, the whole month was full of pressure, and always like, come on guys, come on, we're almost there, we're almost there, what can we do more, what can we do more, marketing, what can you do, CS, what can you do in terms of upsell, and then at the end of the month, the last day, we just reach it, and then you have one message in Slack, yoo-hoo, we reached it, and the next day it's okay, new target. And I was like, whoa, and that's really something that I learned at Team Leader, and that also we actively changed at Team Leader, but it's something that stuck to me, like, wow, it's such a volatile system. It's always, ups, and then new month, bam, you start at zero. So make sure to take the time to analyze it. If it went well, celebrate it. Also say what people did well. If it didn't go well, analyze it, learn from it, and it's something that we tend to forget. So I hope that by doing that, I kind of take away the pressure a bit, and that people keep their mental health on another way. Of course, we try to have a flexible way of working, that we have all those modern things in place, all those perks that people or generations of today expect, and that's a challenge. It's an ongoing challenge because it never ends. Companies, certainly now with COVID, are reinventing themselves. There's so many companies thinking and struggling or redeveloping the way of working. What was the role of the office today? Should we have one office? Should we have offices all over the world? Should we no longer have an office? That's something I personally also struggle with, to be honest, in a way that, as a sales team, I'm convinced that still the aspect that helps you to grow and ramps you up most is being surrounded with others, listening to others, other calls live, hearing, oh, he also has that objection. Now I'm going to listen. How is he handling that objection? Even though I don't hear what the person is saying, I hear the tone of voice, and that's one thing. And then the second thing is you can ventilate after your call with colleagues, because they have the same. And I think it's even worse for roles in customer success. When you are supporting, you have an angry customer, you're working from within your kitchen or your living room or whatever at home. You cannot just close the door and leave it behind you and go home. No, you are home, so those the angriness, the frustration of the customer is still in that room. And so that's something that I think is very, very difficult in that remote working, is the fact that you, first of all, the on-the-job learning goes slower because you're on your own. You have to actively look for recordings from others and go and listen to them and say, okay, that's smart, I'm gonna take that with me. Whereas if you're all sitting together, you constantly hear each other. And secondly, you cannot ventilate, you cannot just debrief, you cannot spit out your frustration towards one of your colleagues and have a good laugh about it and pick up the phone again. If you as a salesperson doing sales from your kitchen and you have the first 5 calls that you do, you have a no, it's very hard to start the 6th call. Whereas at the office, you see the colleague next to you having a yes, so you say, okay, this time I'm going to have a yes as well.
Yeah, true. Did you see it impact your team in the last, like you are now almost a year at Nodalview, but if you look at with team leader, you were midst COVID. Did you see impact on people and changing the way people work because of the situation?
It's yes, of course, because you had no choice. But it's difficult for me, to be honest, to answer that question on the longer term, because I really left team leader in the midst of the COVID crisis, and I started in the midst and at Nodalview. So it's really, I don't know how they evolved, and I don't know how it was here before. But I'm convinced that it changed. I think working remotely is just become so much more normal. I hate this word, but it's the new way of working, and it's the new normal, to stay with the cliches. And it's just like we have to adapt, right? It's not up to us to say, okay, now let's go. It's so hard to not adapt to that, because you're gonna lose the new generations that are coming. They have their own vision on that. They are used to it. They studied like this. So they finished their studies remotely. It's the normal for them. They going every day to an office is gonna be,
that's a challenge.
A no-go.
Yeah, it's gonna be a challenge.
It's honestly gonna be a no-go. It's like asking some of us, like it's gonna, Can you please write out all your documentation on a non-shared drive?
Yeah.
It's so old school, it's so not done that you say, guys, no, that's super inefficient. That's really how bizarre it will be for people that are joining the market right now, to say you have to come to the office every day from 9 to 5.
I like the comparison. Yeah, it's very true. If you're now growing up and you're studying and doing exams all remotely, then it's like, why would I need to be 5 days in a week in an office? That's not efficient.
Exactly. And honestly, I don't see why you have to be 5 days in a week in an office.
Yeah, true.
I do see the value of being sometimes in the office together, to have some moments where you work together and to do that group learning. But I'm perfectly fine also to say, okay, you can perfectly work from somewhere else. Concepts that I like is really something that HubSpot is offering, Raidu as well, I think, is saying to their employees, you have 90 days in the year that you can work fully remote. So it's not holiday, it's nothing to do with that. You just say, okay, you can take every year up until 90 days where you can work from remote. And that doesn't mean that if I take one day that I work from at home, it's not one of those 90 days. It's really saying, okay, now I'm taking my laptop and my stuff and I'm going to South Africa for 3 months, and I come back afterwards and I've been working, but I'm just every event that is at the office, I'm okay not to be there.
Yeah, I know someone who works at HubSpot, and you never know where he's working. He's just somewhere in the world.
Exactly, and for example, Alan, one of the big upcoming scale-ups, they also have that culture that is really like everybody's remote. There's officially no meetings, so everything is documented. Meetings are on paper, asynchronized, so you can actually meet all day on paper, and so I'm super curious to know how in real life that works out. I know some people are working there, so it's fascinating me, but it's super nice indeed. Like you say, you never know where they are. So you see, oh, he's in Portugal right now. He's there right now. The thing for me, it's also a struggle on an HR level, on where do you pay your taxes, who is the intermediate person. Yeah, you have to go with it via a second company that then makes sure that they do all the administration, and that costs a lot of extra money again. And so if you're at the same time making sure that you are getting up the new round of money, and that you have to make sure that where do you spend it, and then say it's to make sure that people can work remote.
That's a hard one.
everything has its place, but
Like in these last years of all the COVID stuff and you transitioning to VP sales, is there a particular day or a moment that you consider being your hardest?
Yeah, the hardest period, if you ask me, was definitely the period that I had in that startup company, where I really had a different vision than the management, and that's where you realize how important it is to have all the noses in the same direction and to have the same vision, and there it was absolutely not the case, and it's just so painful. It's every day it becomes a fight in the end, and then you start thinking, okay, choose your battles. This one I'm going to let go, but that's not a healthy environment, and that's really where I said, okay, I really understand now how people can go in burnout, and because I felt it myself, like I was coming home from work drained of energy, and then felt every day the need to ventilate, and then my poor girlfriend had to listen to it, and she did an amazing job just to not constantly tell me, just go away, which is probably what I would answer her, because I'm not that empathic than she. So, but that's really something that, if you ask me the worst experience in professionally, that's definitely that.
Yeah, it must be a little bit. It must be draining you as a person to be in that situation.
And then to answer your initial question, maybe more linked to COVID, what was the hardest part for me was really to have those company events where it's certainly a team leader, but also here at Nodalview, there's so much fun, and they put so much effort into those events, and then that you just had that virtually, and that you were actually sitting in your couch, and it's still nice. They still did a very awesome effort, but it's not the same, and you're just like, did it come down to this?
Yeah, it must be quite a challenge, and for the people organizing it, like that must be heavy. Like you want to set up a good event or a sales kickoff, and then it's like remote and all virtual.
Exactly.
That must be crazy.
Yeah, and if you have the time and the budget to organize it in a cool way, like a team leader, they did an amazing job. They rented the studio, and it was like a television show. So we really watched on television, and it was like amazing because you saw your colleagues doing an interview and being presenting stuff like it was on TV. So it's really, they put a lot of effort in it, but it's just unfortunately not the same.
It's not the same. No. As a last question for you, If I could give you a billboard at the side of the road, a large billboard, what would you put on it? Like a quote or something that sticks to your mind, like the first thing that comes to mind. I have room for a billboard. It's 4 meters wide, 2 meters high, and it's at the side of the highway.
I think I would go for something inspirational.
Mm-hmm.
Like in one quote that I tell myself every now and then is like, life is like a piano. What comes out of it depends on how you play it. And
I like that one.
That's for me really like, brings us a bit back to, it's do you control things? Not always, but you can control how you react on it. You can control how you look at it. I can see my hand from this side, but if I turn around, I see it from another side, and it's up to you to turn around. And that is for me such a powerful thing that so many people forget to do.
Yeah.
And it comes back to that: choose positivity. Choose to turn around and look at it from the other side.
I think particularly in sales, you get a lot of setbacks, and there's always another side of looking at it and making most about making the progress. Trust the progress.
Yeah. Another quote I live by is, try everything that crosses your path. Worst case scenario is that you've learned something, right? Is that if you, except for drugs, don't do it on drugs, but if you try everything that you can...
You might learn something.
You might learn something, right? Even with drugs probably, but
probably
might be dangerous. But what I mean is you have nothing to lose. You can only win. You can win some if it fails. At least you learned.
Yeah, you learned.
And then you can apply that, and you're so much wiser.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't try,
you never know.
Exactly.
Jens, I would like to thank you for joining me on The Sound of Sales.
It was a pleasure. Thanks a lot for inviting me.